going to be talking about today is Quest Database. Quest Database allows us to access all of the databases at the CHS library, and there's a lot of them. Now, to get to the Quest databases, you log in your X2 account the same way you would normally log in, and there would be a tab on it saying Quest, and you click on it. So, log in to X2, click on the Quest tab, and then here we are. And it gives us some choices. The first one is websites. Now, websites that are in Quest would be qualified websites. In other words, they would have been checked out for having some level of reliability. Now, whenever you're doing research, you really need to look at more than one source, because even if you're looking at sources that are qualified sources, named sources, reliable sources, it's usually best to look at more than one source, because even from a named reliable source, yes, I know it's hard to believe, you could find information that could be outdated, inaccurate, out of context, biased. There's always a possibility. A qualified source, reliable source means that they're good sources, that the information you give would be good information. Doesn't mean it's perfect information. It doesn't mean it's biased. We can give a number of examples in history, but we don't have to get into it. So here's the website. So it's the first one I search. So let's say we're doing a project on global warming, and we wanted to look up farming to see how that would affect it. So we to put the keyword farming in, and a number of websites come up, and you can see they give over on the side the age ranges for the websites that come up, and it gives a little abstract explaining what the website's about. So let me click on the first one, and you see it gives me a website. Okay, now a lot of times when you're doing a search, people who have the actual website and do the writing or write a journal article use different words than the words we might use to describe it. So instead of using farming, you might want to use the word agriculture. So you would get different results by changing the keyword. And it's also a good thing to keep in mind that you want to limit the scope of what you're searching. Instead of saying farming, you might want to say urban farming. That way you would get a smaller group of information. Of course, if you're not interested in urban farming, you might want to use a different keyword. And then when you read articles, you should go in and find other keywords. It might mention a type of farming that's done indoors that can be done in a city, and then you might use that word to then find other information. So it's very important finding good keywords, and before you start searching, it's a good idea to also do some background reading so that you can have a good thesis statement and have good keywords to start with. And as you're reading, you should keep looking at and writing down keywords you think can get you more information. So this is websites. Now you also have some choices, like you can decide you want it only for certain grade levels, and it'll recalculate it. Certain domains, most people aren't going to touch this one unless you wanted something from a specific domain. If you only wanted to say, government websites for some reason. Format type, audio, bibliography, ebook. So you have power over what type of information you want. Like now, maybe you want to see a video. Maybe you're a digital learner. You could click that off and you would get a specific video. Source type, encyclopedia, magazines, news source, primary source documents. So that gives you a couple choices. And obviously languages you're probably not going to change. Most people are going to keep the language in English. But I guess if you're looking for something specific, like we have a few that are in French. Now OneSearch is the big one. OneSearch has all the databases that are listed at the CHS library. Now you can limit the sources that you get by obviously putting in better keywords. More specific keywords is always a positive. You could also go over to the sidebar here and you could check off different information. See, you could check off both, or you could check off one or the other. And if I hit apply changes, it applies them. And then these are the Gale databases, and you have InfoTrack or InfoTrack Junior. You could say, let's say we could search both, apply changes. Internet libraries just give you a couple choices. I happen to like the Khan Academy because they have some cool videos. Library catalog gives you some choices. Reference databases. Now the reference databases, look how many they are. There's a ton of them. And you can check or uncheck these to get more choices. So you only have a couple checked right now. So I get a good number of choices, but I don't get, 3,000 answers to, possible choices. Sometimes it's better to limit them. And if you look through some of them are relevant towards one subject or the other, like the Clio databases. They have a lot of good stuff towards, history, social studies. They do have other subjects as well. And the Gale databases tend to have everything, but there's different types of Gale databases, and a lot of them are for specific narrowed focus areas, like maybe one towards science or the environment, or one for kids. They tend to have each database has a certain focus, so you want to check off the ones that are relevant to the subject that you have. There's two ways in which you limit the information you're getting. You use good keywords, and then you go into the settings and you check or uncheck databases. And what I recommend usually is using different keywords and trying different searches. Try a search where it's just one database. Try another search where it's several databases. Then try maybe another search with everything, and then go look through different types of sources and different types of databases to see what the top results came up in each. You also have more choices. There are digital sources. These tend to be non-traditional sources like a video or recording or a lesson or some sort of presentation, an ebook. Tend to be a little bit different, but that doesn't mean they're not a good source. And some people actually prefer this, going into, say, a video or something to learn about it. It's a different way to learn about information. And the last one is you go into Destiny, and you can actually go in and see what books are out there. And I listed 2 books in this case. And let's click on one and see what it says. And it would give information for where the book is. So you can actually check out books. We're actually in Destiny, and you can get this from the Chelmsford High School website as well, and you can find out which of the schools has that particular book. However, most people are going to find they can find plenty of information by the databases on one search, the websites. From those two, you'll find everything. From the database alone, you could find an absolute ton of information. And the goal really is to use different keywords. So let me just show you what I'm talking about when I'm talking about keywords. This is a project I was doing with the science class. And what I did was I went in and tried to find, related to the subject, we have different keywords that could somehow be related. And I found a lot of keywords having to do with farming or global warming or the environment, and something that either promotes farming or does the opposite, where it could damage us growing crops. And you could see all the words I thought of. Now, if you tried each of these keywords and you checked out different databases, you could get a lot of very diverse information. And the point is that if you have 100 students working on a project, and they have an opportunity to do a project, and they could all pick a different spin on what that project is, a little bit different information under a larger topic. Each of them could have different sources that are qualified sources, and they could find that by using different keywords and different databases. So the idea is, we're not saying these are 5 really good sources, everybody could use them. We're saying here are the tools, here is the knowledge, you can now go search on your own. This is also a good thing to talk about for college readiness, because when people go to college, the thing that they're going to be doing is they're going to be searching databases online and finding a lot of information that way. You can still go to the library and go to the stacks and take out a book. However, at 3 o'clock in the morning, when you can go find journal articles, newspaper articles, videos, ebooks, database information, you can find a number of different diverse sources that are considered to be reliable, good sources. If you can do that, that is certainly a huge plus. Will pay dividends and be a huge benefit when you're doing research and writing your papers in college. I always emphasize the point: you should always have multiple sources, and you should look for different pieces of information when doing research to make sure you get good, reliable information. And if you're not sure about a source, you can always look towards other sources, or you should certainly ask a teacher or librarian to say, is this information reliable? And if you're not sure, there's so many sources that we have, you can go to a different source, or you can reference that information in other sources to see if they say the exact same thing. This is John O'Sullivan for Chelmsford Public Schools. Thank you.